welcome everybody to the NFL Pick'em Show. We're at Conference Championship Weekend. Of course, we're brought to you by MyBookie.ag. I'm your host, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome in my co-host. First up, we had the Minneapolis miracle, but we had a miracle on this show too, where Matt Andruscavage had a 3-game lead in the Pick'em Show and lost all 3 games on one weekend. How you doing, Matt?
I am good, Mike, and just for the record, I'm very pleased to make the picks that I made because it caused you to take the opposite picks, and it paid off for you. So good job.
No, it didn't. I told you. Every one of those games was the way I was going to pick them. Brian can vouch for me. Next up, we've got Brian Schmidt. How you doing, Schmitty?
Doing good. I'm in North Carolina, sliding on the ice of the ice and snowstorm we had, and so if you hear me scream, you know it's gone bad.
All right. It wouldn't be the first time I heard you scream. Of course, Mark Cooper couldn't make it tonight. Former Denver Broncos, usually on the show every week with us. His son's got a basketball game in college tonight. He is watching. So we got 2 special guests. The first one helped lead the University of Cincinnati Bearcats to an undefeated season in 2009. They went and played in the Sugar Bowl. We won't talk about the result of that. But then Tony was drafted by the Carolina Panthers, played for the Panthers for a year. How you doing, Tony?
Well, I'm doing great. Now, you got to admit that was Tim Tebow's last game in college. It was, Urban Meyer's last game at Florida. That was tough sledding. But I also too braved the elements of North Carolina today, as I was supposed to get out of town yesterday, and they basically shut the whole city down. So I'm glad to be out of there, and I'm glad to be with you guys.
All right. Well, if you were back in Cincinnati, it's like 9 degrees, so you're not missing that much. And it's snowy here, too.
Yeah, it's even better.
Yeah. And our next guest played for Brian Schmidt's favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he helped the Steelers 2-3 Super Bowls, won 2 of those. Help me welcome to the show former cornerback Bryant McFadden. How you doing, Bryant?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
All right, we're just going to start off. We'll review last week a little bit, and I know the thing that stood out to you, Schmitty, probably you too, Bryant, was, of course, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and especially, Bryant, the coaching decisions. They're running a sweep play against the Jaguars defense that's really fast on 4th and 1. The decision to onside kick, which I didn't have as much problem with that, Bryant, as I did the fact that they didn't use their timeouts to get the 4th down by the 2-minute mark.
I have to tell you, I had a – which Brian?
I said Bryant. Here, so. Bryant.
Oh, okay.
You know what? Everybody calls me B-Mac, so if that's easier, you can just refer to me as B-Mac.
Well, it looks like it'll be easier for Brian if we do that.
Probably.
I think, with me personally, when you look at how the game unfolded, clearly the 4th and 1, both 4th and 1 calls were a bit questionable because they did not convert them. You ran a tall sweep to Le'Veon Bell. Now, many people were very, very critical of that play call, but it would have been extremely quiet if they converted that 4th down. Now, the second 4th and 1, I don't like the pass. Now, granted, A.J. Bouye got away with the holding call, but yet and still, that's a very, very difficult play in that situation when you're fighting from behind. And then when you look at the onside kick, me personally, when you look at how that game played out, the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, they were very, very bad. They were inconsistent. They couldn't get one stop. So when you look at the coaching staff, and especially Mike Tomlin, he probably felt like his defense wouldn't have gotten the necessary stop they needed. Now, ultimately, when you don't get the kick, when you don't get the onside kick, which was executed horribly, by the way, you basically put them in field goal range instantly, and that's what we saw. So, if hindsight was 20/20, we all would be in a better position than what we are currently. But when you lose a ball game in the fashion in which they lost, everything would be dissected and emphasized, and clearly those key critical moments in the game for something that people are talking about and will be talking about the entire offseason.
Yeah, and Brian, like I said, I understood the onside kick because I agree with Bryant there. The way the defense was playing, or BMAC, sorry about that, but the way the defense was playing, I could see why they did that. Like I said, my biggest question was second down, there's 2:09 left, and they let the clock run to the 2-minute warning, which, I mean, with 2 quick run plays after that, you may have fourth down at the 2-minute warning, which could change things. But overall, Brian, I would say the thing that I really took away from that game the most was just the lack of Pittsburgh's defense.
Well, I mean, you can take the lack of defense. That was an issue. I have a different take on the onside kick. I didn't like it. Yes, I know defensively had not done anything, but at that situation, I rather kick it deep, take my chances. You put them in the field goal range immediately with that onside kick. I didn't like it. Defensively, terrible. And the one thing that I've been upset about with the Steelers defense is at times in key situations, you know what's coming. You know they're rushing for. They're going to play zone in the back. There were times in that game that you could literally call what was happening before it happened defensively, and that was very disappointing. I going with Haley being gone, that was one that I've been kind of wanting for a while now. So I hope that there's changes made and continue to be positive changes because this is still a very good football team. I think defensively losing Shazier hurt immensely. They lost that leadership. They lost that guy in the middle, and some of the other injuries hurt. But certainly they've got to take this off season. They've got to evaluate what are we doing defensively, where do we need to be, and hopefully offensively they continue on the pace that they've had because it's a great offense. But it's really hard to win football games when you're giving up 45 points.
Yeah. All right, we'll go to the NFC side now, the Minneapolis Miracle, Tony. And the thing I took away from this is Mike Zimmer's a really good football coach, and Pat Shurmur is a really good offensive coordinator because I attribute a lot of Case Keenum's success to him because I think a lot of times coaches have a tendency to try to fit the quarterback into their system, and I think Shurmur actually, did the opposite and did what makes Case Keenum a better quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at, first of all, growing up in Cincinnati, I had watching the Bengals, you see the brilliance of Mike Zimmer. And when you hear, the brilliance of Mike Zimmer, you hear what the other players that he's either coached or that are playing under him right now talk about, and that is what kind of guy he is. He gets the best out of the players. And you really see that in the Minnesota mindset. And Kyle Rudolph's a guy that I grew up around watching him play here in Cincinnati. And when you just watch what that team embodies and what Pat Shurmur takes from Mike Zimmer, and you lose Teddy Bridgewater, and you lose Sam Bradford, and you bring a guy in Case Keenum, and the biggest thing with Case Keenum, he's a guy, the quarterback that plays with a chip on his shoulder because people haven't trusted him in the past. And he's been looked over by a lot of teams and a lot of programs in the NFL. And you can see that in the way he plays and the way he leads his team. But when you look at Pat Shurmur, what he's done, they get the ball out quick. They get the ball to their guys. They use Kyle Rudolph. Obviously, you see Stephon Diggs, you see Adam Thielen, what they're doing. But there's no surprise. Obviously, the defense Zimmer has built, but there's no surprise when you look at this team and they can fight through injuries and they can continue to push on. In case Keenum puts up the numbers he does, that's why you're going to see Pat Shurmur obviously as a head coach in this league.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to be a head coach somewhere. Matt, you ever see a finish like that?
Not quite like that. That was really unique because, 10 seconds to go, I'm pretty sure all of us were sitting there thinking maybe they get a chance at a field goal. I don't really think anybody saw a touchdown in that situation. And for what a great play by Stephon Diggs to not only catch it, but to keep his footing and presence of mind to know where he is and to just, if he gets tackled there, they may not have enough time to get that field goal off. But he took a chance and realized where he was and the situation he was in and just made a beeline for the end zone and was able to win the game. Very, very one of the best games I've seen in the last at least 5 years.
Yeah, great football game, great ending. And the thing is, when I see Diggs first catch the ball, I'm thinking, get out of bounds, you can kick the field goal. Then Marcus, he just made a bonehead play. But, Bryant, the thing that bothers me is this, or B-Mac, the thing that bothers me about this is you're a cornerback. And, I mean, things like this can happen. It just happened to him on a huge stage, and I know he catches a lot of grief for it. You really got a feel for the guy.
No question. I think when you look at how he played the entire season, and even in that ball game, his interception led to a big-time scoring opportunity for the offense. It just was a horrible play, something he would love to get over, but it's going to take time. But the thing that I don't really appreciate, everybody is being extremely overcritical. No question. He should have made that tackle. That's a routine tackle. But what led to that play, the alignment issues, pre-snap alignment, basically, from the other two defenders, the other two corners that were in front of Williams, I don't understand why they were extremely aggressive on routes that were in front of them. Because when you look at what they ran, that's the play that we prep time in and time out, situational practices. There's no timeout left on the board for the opposing offense. They need to find a way to catch the pass and get out of bounds. And what we call that was outside cover 2, where we keep everything inside the field of play and we protect the sideline. But also, too, it's easy for us as defenders to play deep to short, which means rally up to the short route and make the tackle. The two guys that were in front of Williams all played tight coverage on the two routes. They ran 3 levels. Rudolph ran the first out. I can't remember who the second receiver was that ran not a deep corner, but like a middle depth corner, and then Diggs ran the deepest corner, and the other two guys just were overly aggressive and created a lot of space. If Crawley was deeper and had better body position, I highly doubt Case Keenum would have taken a shot at Diggs. Because you got to look at it, when Diggs caught that football, it was only 2 seconds left on the clock. 2 seconds. So if he threw the ball to any one of the shorter routes, you're not in field goal range, and there's a good chance time runs out, or you only have one opportunity to attack the end zone for a Hail Mary. So I understand Williams will get the boatload of the criticism, deserving so, but you have to look at the overall pace. What were the 2 linebackers doing in the middle field covering? Nobody. Yeah. Nobody's talking about that. So there are other aspects in that play that you can talk about outside of the known, which is Williams missing the tackle.
Yeah,
I got a question for you, B-Mac.
Yep.
I completely agree with everything you said. I have a question for as a corner, as a defender, what's your opinion of the way when Robinson went in there and he I don't know if you felt like he just kind of backed off. It looked to when I saw the replay, it looked to me like he backed off. Do you think that the way the rules are called now with defenseless receivers, you can get pass interference on just about every play, getting there too early? Do you think any of those rules kind of changed the way he was trying to cover on that play?
Well, you know what? Initially, when I saw the play, I started thinking about a lot as far as how the game is played and how they officiate the game. Initially, I thought he felt like he was there too early, and if he got a pass interference called, that's a spot foul. That would have been, at least a 48-yarder or 50-yarder, if I'm not mistaken, where the ball would have been placed. So initially, that was my thought process. Well, he felt like he was there too early, didn't want to get a PI called on him, so he just avoided contact. But then in the locker room, when they asked him about the play, he just said, I missed the tackle. So in that situation, if he was thinking anything else, I understand many people would have said he's given an excuse. But if that was the honest reasoning for what happened, then I have to respect that. But with him saying, I just missed the tackle, he didn't say anything about, not wanting to get a PI. He didn't say anything about not wanting to get hit with a targeting penalty or anything like that. I have to take him for what he said and take him for his word. So he just basically missed the tackle. But the question you posed to me was, I didn't think that as far as the way the game has been called. I just thought he didn't want to get a PI. And me personally, if that's what I was doing, you better believe. Granted, it won't soften the wound, but I would have made it known this is what I was thinking. I didn't want to get a PI, and I ended up making a bonehead play regardless, and it cost my team the ball game, but I did not want to get hit with a pass interference, and we know this is not college football. It's a spot foul, not 15 yards.
Yeah, I'll tell you the one thing that impressed me, Tony, was this. As a Cincinnati Bengals fan, I mean, I was really surprised that I found a new way that the Bengals could have lost the game that they haven't done yet.
Exactly.
Because I'm sitting there having flashbacks to 2015.
Unbelievable. It was unbelievable when you hear what BMAC said there. The levels route that Minnesota was trying to run. There's no doubt in my mind that what they were looking to do with that was hit that number 2 receiver, because you're thinking as a quarterback that the defense is going to let everything in front of you. And I think Minnesota calling that with what we would have done in the system I was in, either in Cincinnati or with Carolina, is you want to hit that and then at least give yourself a chance with a couple seconds that you could get a ball to the end zone, or you can throw up a Hail Mary that you've seen completed before. And I think Case Keenum was thrown off by the fact that the corners were being so aggressive and the linebackers were sitting in the middle field, that you take a shot. If he catches that and gets out of bounds, you try a field goal, and then we obviously see what happened with the missed tackle. But as a rookie in the league, I still was very impressed with Williams after the game to own up to that, to say it was my fault. And you just hope that he's able to bounce back, because that's being overshadowed. What's been a great year for him, and kind of a resurgence for this Saints defense and the Saints secondary that's going to get overlooked by one play of the season.
Yeah, and if he doesn't make the interception, they're not in position for that anyways.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and that's what I said too. But the thing about the NFL and why the NFL is extremely competitive, you don't know if you can get back to this point again next season. Yeah. So it's almost like a year ago with the Atlanta Falcons. You can't give up a 25-point lead in the second half and lose, because there's no guarantee you will get to that level as far as competing for a championship. When you look at what the Saints had, they were able to fight from behind against a competitive team on the road. And if they win that ball game, I believe they would have been the favorites, and not only just the favorites, I would have liked the Saints in beating Nick Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah. So when that play happened, and we talked about that play was not just Williams' fault, just a domino effect of what went wrong in that last play, that team will be totally different next season, right? So when you talk about getting to a championship or having a championship caliber team, and I believe the Saints, they had that this season, you have to have 3 things happen for you as far as competing for a championship based on what I've seen and been a part of. Number 1, you have to be lucky. Luck will come into play, right? Number 2, you have to dodge the injury bug to key positions, key players. And number 3, you just got to execute. You got to be consistent. And they were able to do all of those things this season with a Hall of Fame quarterback, and one play cost them everything. I know our coaches always tell us, even when I was there, Bill Cowher or Mike Tomlin, anytime we were playing against in a playoff caliber, in a playoff game, in the atmosphere, before we went out on the football field, they will always emphasize, men, look at the man to the right, look at the man to the left, look at the man in front of you, look at the man behind you. This room, if we don't take care of our business, this room would never be the same again. And that's the nature of the game. As far as people moving, people getting cut, people taking deals to go elsewhere, people retiring. So now when you look at what the Saints had in front of them, I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow based on what happened. And I said the same thing with the Atlanta Falcons a year ago. That's going to be a tough pill to swallow and extremely difficult to get over.
Yeah, you look at it, B-Mac, 3 to 4 teams in the championship game this week were not in the playoffs at all last year.
Exactly.
So, all right, let's go ahead. Go ahead.
The Pats.
Yeah, but they're a given. They're always in it. Doesn't matter who plays for them as long as Belichick's coaching them and Brady's playing quarterback. We'll get to the Patriots now. We're going to go ahead and break down the Jaguars and the Patriots. I mean, this is a game where I think Jacksonville, Tony, they are built to play this Patriots team and beat them. I don't think this is a 7 to 10 point underdog the way a lot of people do.
No, I'm right there with you. And I got a chance this year when they played Cincinnati and covering a little bit of what the Bengals do. It's not just this secondary in Jalen Ramsey and Bouye. This is a defensive line. They call themselves Saxonville for a reason. They can get after the quarterback in obvious passing situations. And with how great Tom Brady is, in his greatness, in the history of what he does, historically, and now that he's a little older, he doesn't like to have to move around in the pocket. You see a lot of throwaways. You see his accuracy go down. He likes to keep that comfort in the pocket. He likes to use the tight end. He likes to use the running backs. When you look how Jacksonville's built, and you look where they've been successful all year, they're a team that can get after the quarterback. And obviously, when you saw what they did to Ben Roethlisberger in the first time around and intercepted him 5 times, they can make plays in the secondary. And that's a recipe for success. And all year it's been, how do you question, what can they do on offense? Well, they came out and they ran 3 play-action passes in a row last week, and Blake Bortles, looked great on the first drive. So if they can mix that in with the defense and somehow force the Patriots into some obvious passing situations where this defensive line can pin their ears back, there's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think.
Yeah, and when I look at this, Brian, the thing that stands out to me is the Patriots are 10th in the NFL in rushing. The Jaguars are just 21st against the rush. So I think on the outside looking in at the Jaguars, you would think this could be a problem for them. But I think people forget that the Jaguars at midseason added Marcel Darius, and he's going to be in their base 4-3 sets. And with the speed they've got to stop in the sweep, I think the Patriots are going to have to be able to run the ball in between the tackles and maybe even use 2 backs in the backfield to do it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great defense. And the one thing that really just stood out against the Steelers and a few times that I've seen Jacksonville is just that the team speed. They just have great speed, sideline to sideline, and everything they do, and it's going to be a little different for New England because their running game they've never been a big downhill running game. They use it enough to create some play action opportunities and do some things, but they're not going to be able to go sideline to sideline. They're going to have to be able to do a little bit between the tackles. But, the biggest thing for New England is the fact that when they get rolling with the passing game and they start using, all their weapons, they're such a tough offense that they start dictating. If New England starts dictating what they want to do offensively, it doesn't matter if you're Jacksonville or who you are defensively. It's very hard to stop.
Yeah, and B-Mac, when I look at this, the Jaguars, at least what I saw last week, they play a lot of cover 3. They can defend the tight ends who are trying to stretch the field because they got really athletic linebackers. Their defensive secondary is really athletic too. So I think that they can actually have some success, even if it's a 2 tight end set with Gronk and Allen.
Yeah. The thing about, personnel-wise, I believe the Jaguars will present the toughest challenge based on their ability to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks only rushing 4 guys or 3 guys. That's extremely unique. But the thing about the Patriots, and people wonder why they're so successful outside of the known, which is Tom Brady, the greatest NFL player, in my opinion, in NFL history. But offensively, when you're game planning against the New England Patriots, and Tony, you can appreciate how magnificent this is. The Patriots, they're that one organization offensively. For us, when we study tape, we go back to the 4 previous ball games, right? That's usually our foundation as far as breaking down film, getting ready for that upcoming ball game. And then, of course, if we played that team earlier in the year, we watched that game, or if we played them a year ago. But most teams break down the 4 previous ball games to kind of get a great indicator on what you will see. The unique thing about the Patriots is that offense, their game plan week in and week out is totally different depending on who they're playing. So there's a good chance, based on the game plan that we saw against Tennessee, they will not run no more than 2 or 3 plays that they ran against Tennessee against Jacksonville. So the issue here, listeners, is that as a defender, as a DC, there's only so much you can cram in as far as a week of preparation to get a great feel on what you could see. The Patriots may implement the game plan they used week 2 against Jacksonville. And that's difficult. So for me, studying tape, there's only so much studying I can do in a matter of 3 full real days of prep. And then you may see something you haven't seen all year long. Like this past weekend against Tennessee, they lined Rob Gronkowski up at fullback. How many times did we see that this season?
Not at all.
Exactly. That's the unique thing about the Patriots is that you don't know what game plan you will see. They may implement a game plan they only ran twice in 2016 and have that for Jacksonville. So that's why you see a lot of teams looking like they're not prepared for the Patriots because the games that they have prepped, the games they studied, the plays they studied, they're not even seeing. And guess why? Because when you have a player like Tom Brady that has been rooted and grounded in that organization, he understands every playbook that you've ran from the early 2000s, you have the ability to do that.
All right. Matt?
Boy, this game, I like everything you guys said about the Jaguars defense. To me, the key player on that defense is Calais Campbell. When they brought him in, they brought a guy who you can build a front 7 around. He disrupts everything. He can get after the run. He can get after the quarterback. He just makes everything difficult for an offensive line. I do think this is going to be, if the Patriots win this game, this is going to be their toughest victory of the season. I think Belichick will do a fantastic job of scheming against Blake Bortles and doing what they can to slow the running game down. But they're also going to have to put some points on the board, and it's going to be really, really tough for all the reasons you guys gave. I think Jacksonville's defense is fantastic.
All right, we got to pick the game. We'll start off with Tony. Who you got in this one?
Yeah, and I think just real quick too with what B-Max said. When I was at UC, we went out of our way in games to run a wildcat or to line up in different formations. Because like you said, you only get 3 or 4 practices during the week. There's only so many things you can do to get ready. When you got Tom Brady behind center, it's not like you can come up with a new defense that he hasn't seen before. No matter what you throw at him, he's going to understand what is coming, and that's what makes them so hard to beat. And as much as I like Jacksonville's defense and can talk about them, on the other side, what do the Patriots always do? They take away your best option. They're going to take Leonard Fournette out of the game as much as they can, and I'm just not sold that Blake Bortles is going to be the guy that can lead this team. They've had a great season. They're rebuilding. They're going in the right direction. But I just can't go against Tom Brady in this game. I got to take the Patriots.
Yeah, when I look at these rosters, I mean, I think Jacksonville's roster is probably better, but I can't get past the Belichick and Brady thing on this. And the same thing, I can't see Bortles out-dueling Brady. I think the Patriots win the game. I think they win the game by 3 to 7 points. B-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I really want Jacksonville to win. I'm rooting for Jacksonville, but I don't think it's going to happen for some of the things that I mentioned, and I agree with you guys' opinions also. My biggest question is, will the Patriots cover? I mean, they're 9-point favorite right now.
It's down to 7 now. Down to 7 in the last few hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So that's the bigger question for me. And also, too, let me ask you guys a question based on that ball game. If there was one drive left, who do you want to see on the field for Jacksonville? Would you take Jacksonville defense or Blake Bortles?
The problem is you would take Jacksonville's defense, but Tom Brady's on the other side.
I was just going to say it's a real catch-22 for Jacksonville in this situation.
Yeah, and for me, you don't want it to be Blake Bortles versus Tom Brady, but it could be a situation whereas Blake will be called to do what he did last week against the Steelers. So I like the Patriots. They have it's hard to bet against Tom Brady or think he will lose in this matter. I want Jacksonville to win, but if I had to put any money down, I'm not going against Belichick.
All right. Matt, we'll let you go next since Brian's a game behind you and probably wants to know what you're picking first.
Just like you last week, just wait till I pick.
I don't think so, but go ahead. You don't have to be bitter just because I've kicked your ass the last 2 weeks. Go ahead.
When I'm bitter, I don't laugh. I'm good. I'm gonna do the same thing and go with the Patriots, but I do think this is going to be a really, really tough game for New England to win. I do think Jacksonville's going to present a lot of problems, but absolutely, Tom Brady is he's going to know what kind of defense is getting thrown at him. I do think New England's run game will be effective in this game, but to me, the biggest thing is what New England defensively is going to do against Jacksonville's offense. I really like Belichick's and Matt Patricia's odds at being successful when they attack the Jacksonville offense. So I'm going to take New England by about 4 points in this game.
All right. Schmidt?
Yeah, it's the next game. You have to make sure he goes first. Yeah, I'm in agreement with all you. As much as I would love to take Jacksonville in this, I would like not to really put myself 2 games back. So I'll take New England. I really think it's going to be a good game. I know so many people are, New England's going to blow them out. I just think Jacksonville defensively is a good split, but they've got a little bit of magic going on right now. This is kind of a team that, for no rhyme or reason, just seems to find a way. I mean, who in their right mind would have thought they would have scored 45 points last week? They just found ways to do things defensively all year long. They've had a solid run game. And then all of a sudden, last week, Blake Bortles looks like, a second coming Joe Montana. So they got a little bit of magic. But I think at the end of the day, New England is just New England. It's hard to go against Belichick and Brady.
All right, next up, we've got the NFC Championship game. The Minnesota Vikings at the Philadelphia Eagles. The Minnesota Vikings are favored by 3.5 points. Let's start off with Tony. I know BMAC talked about the 3 things it took to get to this point. The thing that is impressive with both of these coaching staffs is they've got a big gaping hole in that second one he brought up where you need to not have important players get hurt. And, I mean, these coaching staffs have done great jobs with these teams, and I think this is another game that could go down to the wire.
Absolutely. This to me, everyone talks about the quarterback situation and Carson Wentz. Nick Foles has been a good quarterback in this league. He's been very serviceable. And much like we've talked about with different areas of the teams, you get that chip on your shoulder because as good as Carson Wentz was, they got a damn good defense. They got an offense that can move the ball. And for me, when you mix that up with having everyone count you out as soon as your quarterback goes down, you got a lot to play for. But what I worry about in this game is how much, Minnesota now, having the Super Bowl at home, they didn't only lose 2 quarterbacks throughout the last couple of years. They lost Dalvin Cook, who was having one of the better rookie starts, and he kind of gets forgotten in all this of what Mike Zimmer's done because he was a big part of their offense. I just look at Minnesota right now. I look at the way Case Keenum's playing. I look at their running game. I look at Adam Thielen. And then you look at that defense. I just don't know how Nick Foles can score enough points this week.
All right, so I assume you're going with the Vikings?
Yes. I'm
right.
going with the Vikings. I'm going with them getting to play the Super Bowl at home and maybe upsetting the Patriots there.
Yeah, and I think this team, to me, Matt, is the team that's best suited to beat the Patriots because we talked about Jacksonville's defense. But if you look at Minnesota with Everson Griffin, Linville Joseph up front, Anthony Barr and Kendricks at linebacker, Rhodes and Smith in the secondary, I don't think there's a weakness on this defense.
No, there really isn't. I think, a lot of times you look at the great defense over the last several years. I think of, back when my Niners were with the Seahawks had a really, really good defensive rivalry. The Niners had the superior front seven, but the Seahawks had the superior secondary. The Vikings are pretty much the best at both across the league. They're number 1 in points allowed. They're number 1 in yards allowed. There just isn't a weakness on this team. And, it's going to be – but the Eagles are pretty much a complete team as well. It's going to be quite the game. But, yeah, if you're going back to what you said about the Patriots, I do think the Vikings probably have the best chance defensively of anybody to stop what New England does on offense.
All right, B-Mac?
I like Minnesota. I think, that lucky break they got last week will enhance their chances based on them being extremely relaxed. Of course, they will play with a sense of urgency, the same they said with Philadelphia. But I just think the Vikings defense collectively as a unit is better than the Philadelphia Eagles, who, by the way, they've been playing real good defense, but it's just something about that defense from Minnesota. They do a great job. They got nice depth on the defensive line, the edge rusher, the interior rushers. I love their linebackers, love the secondary. So I think that's going to be a bit much for Nick Foles, because when you look at Nick Foles this past weekend against Atlanta, he struggled against Atlanta. And Atlanta's defense, they're nowhere near the Minnesota Vikings defense. And Nick Foles has really struggled outside of his first start. He has not been extremely efficient, and sustaining drives has been a bit of an issue, and that was the total opposite when they had Carson Wentz, especially on third down. They were one of the best teams in the league in converting third downs. So outside of his first start, where he had a pretty nice day, he's been a bit in and out as far as being consistent, and I expect to see the same struggle. So when you look at what they were able to do, or the lack thereof, as far as scoring points, but their defense gave them an opportunity to win the ball game. Will the Eagles' defense have enough to stop Case Keenum? And that's weird saying that, Case Keenum and the Minnesota Vikings, but I don't think so.
All right. Schmitty, you're a game behind me and Matt. Who you got?
I have not made my pick, by the way, but go.
I thought you did. Well, go ahead then. I asked you to make your pick.
You just asked me about the Vikings stopping Patriots.
All right. Well, I figured since Tony went before you and picked the game.
Pick.
Why do I need to make my pick?
You're winning.
Yes, I am
winning.
winning.
You're winning.
And it's going to stay that
so
way.
You
the
make
show's
your
fixed.
Pick, I'll make mine, and then Brian can make his.
Oh, quit being such a baby. I'm taking the Vikings. I think the Vikings are the more complete team. I think the Falcons do have a good defense, B-Mac, but I think the difference is this. The Falcons are very athletic. The Vikings are athletic, but they're bigger on top of that physically.
Yeah, I agree. But also, too, the Vikings have been more consistent. You look at their pass rushers, they can go 3-4 deep as far as individuals. They can win one-on-one blocks, beat one-on-one blocks. And then you look at the linebackers, they're extremely athletic. And then the final deciding factor for me is the secondary. I mean, you talk about two guys that can take away, can win ball games in Harrison Smith and Xavier Rhodes. So, I mean, this is playoff football. This is championship football. I mean, there's no one thing that we believe will happen. That's the good thing about the NFL. It's the ultimate team sport because you need all 11 guys on the football field to be on one accord to be successful.
Yeah, and it does worry me to playing on the road when you look at, I think, 3 of the Vikings' losses, or the 3 worst games they played this year, were outside, away from the Dome. So, Matt, I'm taking the Vikings. Who do you have?
Well, I'd love to take the Eagles here, but I cannot think of a way Nick Foles is going to be able to put points on the board, help the Eagles really put points on the board enough to win this game. I do think the Vikings will score enough points, and that defense is – I'm not even sure if Philly's going to get 10, 13 points in this game. You got to take Minnesota this game.
All right, Brian, what's your view on this game, and what's your pick?
Well, my view on this game is I was, really hoping that Matt would take the Eagles, which would have made me sound a heck of a lot smarter now. But since that he took Minnesota, I'm still going to sound smart. And I believe that Nick Foles will play his best game all year. The Eagles defense, the Eagles crowd will be crazy, and Minnesota and Case Keenum will fail on the road. I am taking the Eagles. And if Matt would have taken the Eagles, then I would have said the same thing and just took the Vikings.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Any final words, Brian?
I just hope both games are good, and I hope the Eagles pull the upset, and so that we're all tied going into Super Bowl Sunday.
All right, Matt.
That would be pretty interesting. Yeah, I agree with Brian. That would be interesting, but I'd rather, I guess, as we've done this a couple of years now, and Mike and I keep finishing tied. It would be kind of odd to have a three-way tie, but whatever. I do think both these games are going to be really good. So as much enjoyment as we got out of, especially the Sunday games. I mean, despite the Steelers' loss, I'm sure we all agree it was a great game. I think we're in for two really good games this Sunday to decide the championship games.
All right, B-Mac, final words?
Yeah, another outstanding weekend coming up for us as far as watching football. I gave my picks. I do have an issue seeing the Pats play the Vikings in the Super Bowl, so I hope I'm wrong with that one. I hope it's Jacksonville, but all in all, I think it's going to be outstanding football. Can't wait to watch.
All right, Tony?
I'm with you guys. I think it's going to be a great weekend for the NFL. I think they're going to really raise some eyebrows, and I'm like I said, I'm looking forward for Case Keenum because he still kind of gets that rap of he doesn't belong there, he doesn't deserve to be there. He's been the guy all year from Minnesota, and he's a big reason why they're there. Other than their defense, and I just think he continues to get that. Well, he's not the elite guy. He's not this. I hope he goes out, and I hope he has a great game, and I hope they can get that Super Bowl in Minnesota because I think that as well is great for the NFL.
All right. I want to thank B-Mac and Tony for joining us tonight. Hopefully you'll come back.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I want to remind
everybody.
Yep. Thanks, Tony. I want to remind everybody you can hear all the shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker. Tomorrow, Boxing Legends show. We got former light heavyweight champion Virgil Hill on the show at 7 o'clock live Eastern Time. You can go to gruelingtruth.net to listen to that. And at 5 o'clock, we've got former super middleweight and light heavyweight champion Reggie Johnson on the show. Also, in the past 2 weeks, we've had Larry Holmes and George Foreman on as guests. So you can go to gruelingtruth.net and hear that also. So for Tony Pike, B-Mac, Brian Schmidt, Matt Andruscavage, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.